Jessica Barnes clutched her ivory-colored clutch as she stood at the entrance of the Grand Meridian Hotel's ballroom, a knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach. The wedding invitation felt heavy in her hand, almost as heavy as the realization that she was about to walk into a room of perfectly paired couples alone. Again. The familiar wave of self-consciousness washed over her as she smoothed down the blue satin dress she'd splurged on, despite knowing her teacher's salary couldn't justify the expense. But her cousin Megan's wedding demanded something special, even if Jessica would be relegated to whatever table caught the wedding planner's sympathy. "Mommy, why can't I come with you?" 7-year-old Lily's question from earlier that morning echoed in her mind. Jessica had left her daughter with her mother for the weekend, promising ice cream and stories upon her return. Single parenthood had become Jessica's identity since Mark walked out 4 years ago, choosing his freedom over fatherhood without a backward glance. "Name, please." The attendant at the entrance wore a plastic smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Jessica Barnes. I'm the bride's cousin." She attempted to match the woman's smile, but felt hers equally strained. The woman scanned the list, her French-tipped nail sliding down the paper. "Ah yes, table 19. She pointed vaguely toward the back of the ballroom, near the kitchen. Of course, the singles table, or worse, the "we didn't know where to put you" table. Jessica nodded her thanks and stepped into the opulent space. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over round tables, adorned with elaborate floral centerpieces. White roses and pale pink peonies cascaded from tall glass vases, creating a romantic fairy tale atmosphere that only intensified Jessica's awareness of her solitary state. She weaved through clusters of laughing guests, dodging servers, carrying trays of champagne. The perimeter of the room was lined with cocktail tables, where well-dressed people engaged in animated conversation. Jessica recognized some of Megan's friends, a few distant relatives, but no one she felt comfortable enough to approach. 4 years of dedicating every spare moment to Lily had left little time for maintaining her own social connections. Table 19 was exactly where she expected, tucked in a corner, partially obscured by a decorative pillar, with a clear view of the swinging kitchen doors. 3 other people already sat there, spaced awkwardly around the 10-person table. An elderly woman with a hearing aid, a teenage boy who was clearly a reluctant attendee, and a middle-aged man who kept checking his watch. The island of misfit wedding guests. Jessica forced a smile as she approached. "Hello, is this table 19? The elderly woman cupped her ear. "What's that, dear?" "Table 19, Jessica repeated louder. "Yes, yes. Sit, sit." The woman patted the chair beside her. "I'm Harriet, the groom's great-aunt. No one knows what to do with me at these things." Jessica settled into the indicated chair, placing her clutch on the table. "I'm Jessica, the bride's cousin." "Oh, Megan's cousin. The teacher, right? With the little girl?" Harriet's eyes brightened with recognition. "That's right." Jessica was surprised the woman knew about her. "Lily, she's 7 now. Megan shows me pictures sometimes when she visits. Beautiful child." Harriet leaned closer, lowering her voice. "They didn't know where to seat you either, No +1? Jessica felt her cheeks warm. "No, it's just me." The ceremony had been beautiful, held in the hotel's garden under an arbor draped with flowers and twinkling lights. Jessica had sat in the back row, blinking back unexpected tears as Megan and David exchanged vows. Her cousin looked radiant, her happiness so complete it was almost tangible. Jessica had been genuinely happy for her, while simultaneously feeling the hollow ache of wondering if she'd ever find that kind of love again. The cocktail hour had been the worst part, watching couples naturally gravitate toward each other while she hovered near the appetizer table, pretending to be fascinated by the assortment of canapes. She'd caught Megan's apologetic glance across the room and had smiled reassuringly. This wasn't Megan's problem to solve. Now, as the main reception began and guests found their assigned seats, Jessica resigned herself to an evening of awkward small talk and early departure. The teenage boy at the table was already engrossed in his phone, while the middle-aged man had disappeared, possibly to the bar. "Ladies and gentlemen," the DJ's voice boomed across the ballroom, "please welcome, for the first time as husband and wife, Mr. and Mrs. David and Megan Wilson." The room erupted in applause as the newlyweds entered, beaming and holding hands. They looked like they'd stepped out of a bridal magazine, perfect, polished, and blissfully happy. Jessica clapped until her palms stung, ignoring the twinge of envy that pricked at her heart. The first course was being served when a commotion at the entrance drew everyone's attention. Jessica glanced up from her salad to see a tall figure standing in the doorway, his presence commanding enough to momentarily pause conversations throughout the room. Even from a distance, she could see he was strikingly handsome, with broad shoulders filling out an impeccably tailored dark suit. Dark hair, slightly too long for convention, framed a face with strong features that belonged on a billboard. "Who is that?" Harriet squinted toward the entrance. "I have no idea," Jessica replied, watching as the man exchanged words with the same attendant who had directed her to table 19. The woman's formerly bored expression had transformed to one of eager attentiveness. The maitre d' appeared, speaking in hushed tones with the late arrival before gesturing toward. Jessica's heart skipped, their direction. The man nodded, then made his way across the ballroom with confident strides. Heads turned as he passed, curious whispers following in his wake. Jessica dropped her gaze to her plate, suddenly intensely interested in the arrangement of spring greens. She sensed, rather than saw him approach their table, felt the subtle shift in the air as he pulled out the empty chair directly across from hers. "I apologize for my tardiness," a deep voice said, the kind of voice that commanded boardrooms and turned heads in crowded restaurants. "I hope I haven't missed anything important." Jessica looked up, directly into the most piercing blue eyes she had ever seen. The man was even more attractive up close, with a strong jawline shadowed by perfectly maintained stubble and a mouth curved into a polite but reserved smile. "Just the salad," Harriet replied cheerfully, visibly perking up at the new arrival. "I'm Harriet. This is Jessica." The man's gaze locked with Jessica's, and for one disorienting moment, she felt as if the noisy ballroom had fallen silent. His eyes narrowed slightly, assessing her with an intensity that made her skin tingle. "Gabriel Reed," he said, extending his hand across the table. "Pleasure to meet you both." Jessica hesitated before placing her hand in his. His grip was warm and firm, sending an unexpected jolt of electricity up her arm. "Jessica Barnes," she managed, withdrawing her hand perhaps a bit too quickly. "Gabriel Reed." The name tickled something in her memory. She'd heard it before, perhaps in the news or in casual conversation. The quality of his suit, the confident way he carried himself, the subtle deference shown by the staff. This was someone accustomed to wealth and influence. A waiter appeared at Gabriel's shoulder, placing a glass of amber liquid before him without being asked. "Your usual, Mr. Reed. The chef sends his regards and says your special meal will be out shortly." Gabriel nodded in acknowledgement, his eyes never leaving Jessica's face. "Thank you, Michael." "You know the staff here?" Jessica asked, curiosity temporarily overriding her nervousness. A smile played at the corners of his mouth. "I own the hotel." "You own the hotel?" Jessica repeated, unable to mask her surprise. The revelation explained the staff's deferential treatment, but raised another question. "Then why are you sitting at table 19? Gabriel's smile broadened, transforming his serious face into something that belonged on a magazine cover. "Let's just say I have a personal connection to the wedding party. David interned at one of my companies a few years ago. Bright kid, promising future." He took a sip of his drink. "As for this table," his eyes swept over their unlikely group. Sometimes the view from the margins is more interesting than being center stage. The teenage boy finally looked up from his phone, suddenly interested in the conversation. "Wait, are you Gabriel Reed? Like Reed Enterprises Gabriel Reed?" Gabriel nodded once, neither proud nor dismissive. "Dude, you're worth like billions." The boy's eyes widened. "My dad has all these books about you." Jessica's memory clicked into place. Gabriel Reed, tech entrepreneur turned investor, owner of Reed Enterprises, which had revolutionized renewable energy storage before expanding into hospitality, healthcare, and a dozen other industries. His face occasionally appeared on business magazines, though he was known for valuing privacy over publicity. "I don't follow the money pages much," Harriet said, adjusting her hearing aid. "What exactly do you do, young man?" Gabriel laughed, a warm, genuine sound that softened his otherwise imposing presence. "A bit of this, a bit of that. Mostly I invest in people with good ideas." "He's being modest," Jessica found herself saying. Reed Enterprises is behind some of the most innovative green energy solutions on the market. Teaching science to third graders had made environmental innovations particularly interesting to her. My class did a project on your solar battery technology last year. Gabriel's eyes sparked with genuine interest. You're a teacher, third grade, at Westbrook Elementary. A noble profession, he said, and unlike when most people said it, with that subtle tone suggesting nobility compensated for poor pay, his words held genuine respect. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of the main course. While the rest of the table received identical plates of chicken piccata, a server presented Gabriel with a perfectly seared salmon fillet. Jessica couldn't help noticing the empty chairs surrounding them, originally intended for other singles or distant connections, now making their small group appear even more isolated in the busy ballroom. Across the room, Megan and David moved between tables, greeting guests with radiant smiles. Jessica watched her cousin, beautiful in her flowing white gown, her face glowing with happiness. She remembered the girls they had been, building blanket forts, sharing secrets, planning their dream weddings. Megan's dream was now reality, while Jessica's had crumbled when Mark walked out, leaving her with mortgage payments, a toddler, and the shattered remains of the future she'd envisioned. Your daughter, Gabriel said, pulling Jessica back to the present. Harriet mentioned you have a daughter. Jessica nodded, surprised he'd been paying attention to their earlier exchange. Lily. She's 7 going on 17, too smart for her own good and determined to become a marine biologist. You sound proud. I am. Jessica smiled, feeling the warmth that always spread through her when thinking about Lily. She's everything to me. Gabriel nodded, something unreadable passing across his face. Children have a way of reordering our priorities. Before Jessica could ask if he had children of his own, the DJ announced the first dance. Lights dimmed as David led Megan to the dance floor. They swayed gracefully to a romantic ballad, lost in each other's eyes, as if they were the only people in the room. Young love, Harriet sighed wistfully. Nothing quite like it. Jessica watched the couple, remembering her own wedding dance with Mark, so full of hope for their future, unaware of the challenges that would eventually break them. She had been 23, still finishing her teaching degree when she'd discovered she was pregnant. Mark had proposed out of obligation more than love, she realized in retrospect. Their marriage had been a house built on a foundation of sand, destined to collapse under the first real pressure. Lily's birth and the realities of parenthood. So, Gabriel's voice drew her attention back to the table. What brought you here alone tonight, Jessica Barnes? The directness of his question caught her off guard. Megan's my cousin. I wouldn't miss her wedding. That's not what I asked. His blue eyes held hers steadily. Jessica felt a flicker of irritation. Not everyone has a +1, Mr. Reed. Gabriel, he corrected, unfazed by her tone, and you strike me as someone who could have a companion if she wanted one. Appearances can be deceiving, Jessica replied, taking a sip of her wine to avoid elaborating. Indeed they can. Something in his expression suggested he wasn't just making conversation, he was genuinely intrigued by her. The music changed, and the DJ invited all couples to join the newlyweds on the dance floor. The ballroom came alive as pairs rose from their tables, flowing toward the center of the room like tributaries joining a river. Jessica remained seated, acutely aware of how the exodus emphasized the emptiness of their table. Would you care to dance? Gabriel asked unexpectedly, standing and extending his hand toward her. Jessica stared at his outstretched hand. I don't need your pity, Mr. Reed. Gabriel, he reminded her again, his hand remaining steady. And this isn't pity. This is me asking a beautiful woman to dance at a wedding. Heat crept up Jessica's neck. She hadn't been called beautiful in a very long time. I'm not very good at it, she hedged. I am, he replied with such casual confidence that she nearly laughed. Against her better judgment, Jessica placed her hand in his and allowed him to lead her toward the dance floor. She was acutely conscious of the curious glances directed their way, the billionaire hotel owner and the unknown woman in the blue dress from the back table. Gabriel's hand settled at her waist, warm and sure, as he guided her into the rhythm of the music. Despite her warning, they moved together with surprising ease, as if they'd danced together many times before. So, he said, his voice low enough that only she could hear, Are you going to tell me the real story of Jessica Barnes? What makes you think there's a story? Everyone has a story, he replied, especially people who end up at table 19. Jessica considered deflecting again, but found herself unexpectedly willing to share. The simplified version? Married young, had a child, husband decided fatherhood wasn't for him, left when our daughter was 3. I've been focused on raising Lily and building my career since then. Not much time for dating. Gabriel nodded, processing her concise summary. And the unsimplified version? Jessica felt a strange tightness in her chest. It had been years since anyone had looked at her with such focused attention, as if her words actually mattered. The unsimplified version isn't appropriate for a wedding. I have a car waiting outside, he said, his eyes never leaving hers. We could go somewhere else and continue this conversation. Jessica missed a step, stumbling slightly before Gabriel's steady grip corrected their movement. Are you always this forward with women you've just met? No, he replied simply. Almost never, actually. Then why me? His gaze intensified, searching her face as if looking for something specific. There's a genuineness about you. It's rare in my world. Jessica felt caught in his blue gaze, tethered by something she couldn't quite identify. She was saved from responding by a tap on her shoulder. Turning, she found herself face to face with Megan, radiant in her bridal gown. Jess, Megan embraced her tightly. I've been trying to catch you all evening. She looked from Jessica to Gabriel with undisguised curiosity. I see you've met Mr. Reed. Please, it's Gabriel, he said, extending his hand to Megan. Congratulations on your marriage. The ceremony was beautiful. Thank you for letting us use your hotel, Megan gushed, and for the upgrade to the honeymoon suite. It's absolutely gorgeous. My pleasure, Gabriel replied smoothly. Megan turned back to Jessica, lowering her voice slightly. I'm so sorry about the seating arrangement. The planner insisted singles had to be grouped together, and with the last-minute cancellations... Jessica squeezed her cousin's hand. Don't worry about it. I'm having a surprisingly good time. Megan's eyes darted meaningfully toward Gabriel. I can see that. She smiled knowingly. Well, don't let me interrupt. I just wanted to check on you. As Megan glided away to greet other guests, Jessica became aware that the music had changed to a slower ballad. Gabriel's hand settled more firmly at her waist. Your cousin seems nice, he remarked, guiding Jessica into the slower rhythm. She is, Jessica agreed. We grew up together. She's always been the adventurous one, and I've been the cautious planner. And how's that working out for you, the cautious planning? Jessica considered the unexpected direction of her evening, standing in the arms of a billionaire who seemed inexplicably interested in her life story. I'm beginning to think I might be due for an adventure. Gabriel's smile held a promise that sent a shiver down her spine. I might be able to help with that. The wedding reception continued around them, but Jessica felt as though she and Gabriel existed in their own separate bubble. They had returned to table 19 after several dances, where Harriet watched them with thinly veiled interest. The teenage boy had disappeared, likely to join peers his own age, and the middle-aged man never returned from his apparent quest for stronger drinks. So, Mr. Reed, Harriet leaned forward with a conspiratorial smile, what brings a man like you to a wedding alone? Surely the ladies must be lining up. Jessica winced at the elderly woman's directness, but Gabriel merely chuckled. Let's just say I've been focused on other priorities lately. Business before pleasure, Harriet pressed. Something like that. Gabriel's gaze flickered to Jessica. Though occasionally the two intersect unexpectedly. Heat rushed to Jessica's cheeks. Before she could formulate a response, her phone buzzed in her clutch. Excusing herself, she checked the screen and saw her mother's name. I'm sorry, I need to take this, she said, rising from her chair. It's about my daughter. Gabriel nodded, his expression shifting to concern. Of course. Jessica hurried toward the ballroom entrance, finding a quiet alcove in the hotel corridor before answering. Mom? Is everything okay with Lily? Everything's fine, honey, her mother's voice reassured her. But Lily's running a slight fever and she's been asking for you. I've given her some children's Tylenol, but I thought you should know. Jessica's maternal instincts immediately overrode everything else. I'll come home right away. Tell her I'm on my way. It's nothing serious, her mother insisted. Probably just a little bug. You don't need to rush back tonight and miss the rest of the wedding. Jessica glanced back toward the ballroom, thinking of Gabriel and their unexpected connection. For a fleeting moment, she felt torn between responsibility and the rare opportunity for personal enjoyment, but it wasn't really a choice. "I'll be there in about an hour," she said firmly. "Give her a kiss from me." After ending the call, Jessica leaned against the wall, gathering herself before returning to say her goodbyes. A part of her, the part that had been awakening throughout the evening in Gabriel's presence, felt a sharp disappointment. Whatever might have developed between them would end before it truly began. When she re-entered the ballroom, she was surprised to find Gabriel waiting near the entrance, 2 glasses of water in hand. "Everything all right?" he asked, offering her one of the glasses. "My daughter isn't feeling well," Jessica explained, accepting the water gratefully. "I need to get back to her." Gabriel nodded, no trace of disappointment or frustration crossing his features. "Do you have transportation?" "I drove here. My car's in the parking garage." "Let me call my driver to take you," he offered immediately. "It would be faster and safer than driving if you're worried about your daughter." His thoughtfulness caught her off guard. "That's very kind, but I couldn't impose—" "It's not an imposition," Gabriel interrupted gently. "Your daughter needs you. Let me help." Something in his tone, an understanding that went beyond mere politeness, made Jessica reconsider. "Thank you, that would be helpful." Gabriel produced his phone and sent a quick text. "Thomas will be at the main entrance in 3 minutes. He'll take you wherever you need to go." "I should say goodbye to Megan first," Jessica said, scanning the crowded room for her cousin. "I'll let her know," Gabriel assured her. "Family emergencies take precedence over wedding protocol." Jessica nodded gratefully, then hesitated. "This evening didn't go as I expected." "Nor I," Gabriel replied, his blue eyes intense. "I don't usually attend weddings where I barely know the couple." "Then why did you come?" A slight smile played at his lips. "Let's just say I had a feeling about tonight. It seems I was right." Their moment was interrupted by another text notification on Gabriel's phone. "Thomas is waiting outside." Jessica took a deep breath, suddenly reluctant to leave despite her concern for Lily. "Thank you for the dances, Gabriel." "Jessica," he said, reaching into his jacket pocket and extracting a business card. "Take this. If you need anything at all, don't hesitate to call. The number on the back is my personal line." She accepted the card, noticing the embossed Reed Enterprises logo and the handwritten number on the reverse. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll call," he replied simply. "I'd like to know that your daughter is all right." Jessica tucked the card into her clutch. "Goodbye, Gabriel Reed." "Until next time, Jessica Barnes." There was no question in his tone, only certainty. The sleek black car waiting at the hotel entrance was unlike any vehicle Jessica had ever ridden in. The driver, Thomas, was professionally courteous, opening the door for her and confirming her address before smoothly pulling away from the curb. As the luxury sedan navigated the evening traffic, Jessica leaned back against the buttery leather seat, processing the surreal quality of the evening. Had she really spent the past few hours dancing with one of the country's wealthiest businessmen? The business card in her clutch felt like the only tangible evidence that Gabriel Reed wasn't a figment of her imagination. Her mind drifted to Lily, her ever-present priority. A fever was probably nothing serious, but maternal worry twisted in her stomach nonetheless. Her daughter had already lost one parent's consistent presence. Jessica compensated by being doubly attentive, sometimes to the detriment of her own needs. By the time Thomas pulled up to her mother's modest suburban home, Jessica had convinced herself that her encounter with Gabriel would remain a pleasant memory and nothing more. Men like him didn't pursue relationships with public school teachers who lived paycheck to paycheck in 3-bedroom ranches. "Thank you, Thomas," she said as he opened the car door for her. "Mr. Reed instructed me to wait and ensure you get in safely," he replied with professional detachment. Jessica nodded, oddly touched by Gabriel's continued thoughtfulness even in his absence. She hurried up the walkway to her mother's front door, which opened before she could knock. "Mom, how is she?" Jessica asked, stepping inside. "Sleeping now," her mother replied, keeping her voice low. "The fever's down to 99. I think it's just a little cold." Relief washed through Jessica as she made her way to the guest bedroom where Lily slept. Her daughter's dark hair was spread across the pillow, her cheek still slightly flushed, but her breathing even and peaceful. Jessica placed a gentle kiss on Lily's forehead, confirming that the fever had indeed receded. "She was so worried about missing you when you got back from the wedding," her mother said from the doorway. Kept saying she wanted to hear all about the princess bride. Jessica smiled, stroking Lily's hair. I'll tell her everything tomorrow. Well, perhaps not everything. Some details about a certain blue-eyed billionaire might remain private. After checking once more on her sleeping daughter, Jessica changed out of her blue dress into borrowed pajamas from her mother. The events of the evening played through her mind as she prepared for bed. Gabriel's confident smile and intense gaze featuring prominently in her thoughts. So, her mother said, bringing Jessica a cup of chamomile tea, how was the wedding? Meet anyone interesting? Jessica nearly laughed at the understatement. You could say that. Good looking? Mom, what? I'm old, not blind to the fact that my daughter deserves happiness. Jessica sighed, taking a sip of tea. Yes, he was good looking, very and successful, and surprisingly normal considering. Her mother raised an eyebrow. Considering what? Considering he owns the hotel where the wedding was held, among other things. Her mother's eyes widened. Now that sounds like a story worth telling. Jessica related an abbreviated version of her evening with Gabriel, from table 19 to his offer of the car service. Her mother listened with growing excitement. And you have his number? She asked when Jessica finished. Yes, but I probably won't call. Why on earth not? Jessica gestured vaguely around her. Mum, look at my life. Single mother, teacher's salary, barely making ends meet some months. Men like Gabriel Reed don't date women like me. That's ridiculous, her mother scoffed. You're beautiful, intelligent, and have more integrity than half the socialites he probably encounters. Besides, he gave you his personal number. That means something. It means he was being polite, Jessica insisted, though a small part of her wanted to believe otherwise. The next morning, Jessica awoke to Lily's improved condition and dozens of questions about the wedding. She described the decorations, the cake, and Megan's dress in detail, fulfilling her daughter's fairy tale expectations while carefully omitting any mention of Gabriel. Some stories were too fragile, too new to share, even with her beloved child. After breakfast, Jessica checked her phone and was surprised to find a text from an unknown number. I hope your daughter is feeling better this morning. Would it be presumptuous to ask if you both might join me for lunch next Saturday? There's a place by the harbour with excellent mac and cheese. I'm told children are excellent judges of this particular delicacy. Gabriel. Jessica stared at the message, heart racing. How had he obtained her number? Then she remembered giving it to the wedding planner for the RSVP list, which would have been accessible to the hotel owner. Mom? Lily's voice broke through her thoughts. Why are you smiling at your phone? Jessica quickly locked the screen. Just a funny message, sweetie. How are you feeling? Better, Lily declared. Can we go to the Science Museum today? You promised last week. Of course, Jessica agreed, tucking her phone away. The text from Gabriel could wait. Today belonged to Lily. The Science Museum trip was a success, with Lily's energy returning in full force as she dashed from exhibit to exhibit. By late afternoon, they returned home to Jessica's small but comfortable house, where Lily immediately resumed her latest marine biology project, a detailed poster about whale migration patterns. Only when Lily was fully engaged in her coloring did Jessica allow herself to reread Gabriel's text. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, uncertain how to respond. A lunch invitation seemed innocent enough, but Jessica hadn't dated anyone seriously since Mark left. The prospect was both thrilling and terrifying. After several false starts, she finally replied, Lily is much better, thank you. Your driver was a lifesaver last night. Regarding lunch, Lily has very high standards for mac and cheese. We'd be curious to see if this place meets her approval. Saturday works for us. She pressed send before she could second-guess herself, then set her phone aside, pretending her heart wasn't pounding. Less than a minute later, it buzzed with Gabriel's response. Excellent. Thomas will pick you up at 11:30. Looking forward to meeting the marine biologist in training. Jessica stared at the message. How did he know about Lily's marine biology interest? Then she remembered mentioning it during their dance. The fact that he had retained such a small detail sent an unexpected warmth through her chest. That night, after tucking Lily into bed, Jessica found herself facing her reflection in the bathroom mirror. The woman who stared back looked both familiar and strange. The same brown eyes and heart-shaped face she'd always had, but there was something different in her expression, a spark of possibility that hadn't been there before. "This is crazy," she told her reflection. "You barely know him." Yet something about Gabriel Reed had resonated with her in a way no one had since before Lily was born. Perhaps it was his confidence, or the intensity of his focus when she spoke, or the subtle vulnerability she glimpsed beneath his polished exterior. Saturday approached with alarming speed. Jessica found herself unusually distracted at work, her third-grade students noticing her occasional lapses into daydreaming. By Friday afternoon, she was second-guessing her decision to accept Gabriel's invitation. "What if it's awkward?" she asked her friend and fellow teacher, Amanda, over coffee in the staff room. "What if Lily doesn't like him? What if he realizes I'm not what he expected?" Amanda rolled her eyes. "What if the earth opens up and swallows us whole? Jess, you're overthinking this. It's lunch, not a marriage proposal." "But why would someone like him be interested in someone like me?" Jessica persisted. "Because you're amazing," Amanda replied matter-of-factly, "and maybe he's smart enough to see that." Saturday morning arrived with clear skies and Jessica's nerves at an all-time high. She had changed outfits 3 times, finally settling on a casual sundress that struck the right balance between effort and nonchalance. Lily, oblivious to her mother's anxiety, was simply excited about the prospect of restaurant mac and cheese and meeting a real-life billionaire, as Jessica had finally explained to her. "Will he have a robot butler?" Lily asked as Jessica braided her daughter's dark hair. Jessica laughed. "I don't think so, sweetie. Does he have a swimming pool filled with money like Scrooge McDuck?" "That's not really how billionaires work," Jessica explained gently. "Mr. Reed owns companies that help the environment and build things like this hotel." Lily considered this information with serious concentration. "Is he your boyfriend?" The question caught Jessica off guard. "No, honey. He's just a new friend I met at Aunt Megan's wedding." "But you're wearing your pretty earrings," Lily observed shrewdly, "and you changed clothes a bunch of times." Jessica touched the small pearl earrings self-consciously. Nothing escaped her daughter's notice. Sometimes adults like to look nice when they meet new friends. At precisely 11:25, Jessica's phone chimed with a text. "Thomas is 5 minutes away." She marveled at Gabriel's punctuality and attention to detail. Even through a simple lunch invitation, his efficiency was evident. As promised, the sleek black car pulled into her driveway at 11:30 on the dot. Jessica took a deep breath, checking Lily's appearance one last time before they stepped outside. To her surprise, Gabriel himself emerged from the back seat, looking casually elegant in dark jeans and a light blue button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up. Without the formal suit from the wedding, he appeared more approachable, though no less striking. "Jessica," he greeted her with a warm smile before kneeling to Lily's eye level. "And you must be the famous Lily. Your mum told me you're an expert on marine biology." Lily, usually shy with strangers, stood a little straighter. "I know all about whales and dolphins and the giant squid. Did you know the colossal squid has the biggest eyes of any animal, like the size of dinner plates?" Gabriel looked appropriately impressed. "I did not know that. Perhaps you can teach me more over lunch." Lily nodded enthusiastically, any hesitation forgotten. Jessica watched the interaction with a mixture of relief and something deeper, a warmth that spread through her chest at how naturally Gabriel engaged with her daughter. The restaurant by the harbor was upscale yet welcoming, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water. When they entered, the maitre d' greeted Gabriel by name. "Mr. Reed, your usual table is ready." Gabriel placed his hand lightly on the small of Jessica's back as they were led through the restaurant. The gesture was subtle yet possessive, sending a flutter of awareness through her. They were seated at a corner table with a spectacular view of sailboats gliding across the bay. "This place is fancy," Lily whispered loudly to Jessica. Gabriel leaned in conspiratorially. "It is, but they make the best mac and cheese in the state. I had them put it on the menu specially today." Lily's eyes widened. "You can do that?" "Sometimes," Gabriel replied with a wink, "when it's for an important food critic like you." Jessica observed their interaction, feeling both touched and slightly alarmed at how quickly Lily was warming to Gabriel. Her daughter had never known consistent male attention. Mark's sporadic visits over the years had dwindled to birthday calls and occasional child support checks. She didn't want Lily becoming attached to someone who might not remain in their lives. As if sensing her thoughts, Gabriel turned to Jessica. "I took the liberty of asking the chef to prepare a few options. I hope that's all right?" Of course, she nodded, appreciating his thoughtfulness even as she reminded herself to maintain emotional boundaries. Lunch progressed with surprising ease. Gabriel asked Lily questions about school and her scientific interests, listening with genuine attention to her animated responses. Between discussions of marine creatures and third-grade politics, Jessica found herself relaxing, drawn into their comfortable dynamic. "So," Gabriel said during a lull while Lily was occupied with her promised mac and cheese, "you never did tell me the unsimplified version of Jessica Barnes's story." Jessica took a sip of her sparkling water. "There's not much more to tell. I married my college boyfriend when I found out I was pregnant. We were too young, too different in what we wanted from life. He wasn't ready to be a father. His loss," Gabriel said quietly, his gaze shifting briefly to Lily before returning to Jessica. "And since then?" "Since then it's been about creating stability for Lily. Teaching, managing a household, being both parents." Jessica shrugged. "Dating hasn't been a priority. Until now?" There was a hint of challenge in his question. Jessica felt a blush rising to her cheeks. "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." His confident smile should have been irritating, but instead, she found it disarmingly charming. "What about you? There must be a story behind the billionaire who sits at table 19 and dances with single mothers." A shadow crossed Gabriel's features. "My story is considerably less noble than yours." "I doubt that." He was quiet for a moment, seeming to debate how much to share. The simplified version. Workaholic businessman builds empire, neglects personal life, wakes up at 42 with everything and nothing simultaneously. Jessica was struck by the unexpected vulnerability in his admission, and the unsimplified version. Gabriel's blue eyes held hers. That might require more than one lunch to fully explore. The implication that there would be more occasions like this hung between them, both tantalizing and terrifying. "Mr. Reed," Lily interrupted, having finished her mac and cheese, "do you have a boat? Because there's a really cool one out there." She pointed toward the window. Gabriel followed her gaze to a sleek yacht moored at a nearby dock. "As a matter of fact, I do, that one actually." Lily's jaw dropped. "That's your boat? Would you like to see it?" he offered. Lily turned to Jessica with pleading eyes. "Can we, Mom? Please?" Jessica hesitated. Stepping onto Gabriel's yacht seemed like crossing a threshold, moving from casual lunch into his world. But the hopeful excitement on Lily's face made resistance difficult. "If it's not an imposition," she said cautiously. "Not at all," Gabriel assured her. "In fact, I was hoping you might agree to a short sail. The weather is perfect." An hour later, Jessica found herself on the deck of Gabriel's yacht, the shoreline receding as they cruised gently through the bay. The vessel was luxurious without being ostentatious, clearly expensive, but designed for actual sailing rather than just showing off wealth. Lily had been given a tour by the captain, who was now teaching her about navigation on the bridge. "She's a remarkable child," Gabriel said, joining Jessica at the railing. "You've done an incredible job with her." "Thank you," Jessica replied, genuinely touched. Few people understood the challenges she'd faced as a single parent. "She's my world." "I can see that." Gabriel was standing close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "It's one of the things that drew me to you at the wedding." "What do you mean?" "When Harriet mentioned you had a daughter, something changed in your expression. There was this light, authenticity. In my world, that's rare." He turned to face her fully. "Jessica, I should be honest about something." A knot of apprehension formed in her stomach. "What is it?" "I knew who you were before I sat at table 19. Jessica frowned. "I don't understand." Gabriel took a breath. "David, the groom, worked for me several years ago. When he sent the wedding invitation, he included a note mentioning his fiancée's cousin, a single mother who'd been through a difficult time. He thought we might have things in common." Jessica felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment and the first stirrings of anger. "So this was—" "What? A setup? A charity case?" "No," Gabriel said firmly. "David merely suggested I might want to meet you. The decision to approach you was entirely mine, after I saw you at the ceremony." "You watched me during the ceremony?" Jessica took a step back, unsettled. "That sounds more sinister than it was," Gabriel said, a hint of frustration in his tone. I noticed a beautiful woman sitting alone, looking both happy for the couple and a little sad for herself. It resonated with me. Jessica crossed her arms. So you engineered our meeting. I simply chose to sit at your table rather than at the head table where I was assigned. Gabriel's expression was earnest. Everything that happened after that was genuine, Jessica. Our conversation, the dancing, this lunch, none of that was planned. Jessica looked away, processing this revelation. Part of her wanted to be angry at the manipulation, however well-intentioned. Another part recognized that their meeting might never have occurred otherwise. "Why are you telling me this now?" she finally asked. "Because I don't want secrets between us," Gabriel replied simply. "And because I think there's potential for something real here, but it needs to start with honesty." The raw sincerity in his voice disarmed her. "Something real? Gabriel, we live in completely different worlds. You own hotels and yachts. I clip coupons to make the grocery budget stretch." "Those are circumstances, not barriers," he countered, "unless you let them be." Before Jessica could respond, Lily came bounding over, her face flushed with excitement. "Mom, Captain Mike showed me how to read the navigation system and how the radar works. Can I steer the boat? He said I could if you say it's okay." Jessica managed a smile, grateful for the interruption. "If Captain Mike thinks you're ready, then yes." Lily squealed with delight and ran back toward the bridge. Jessica turned to follow her, but Gabriel gently caught her wrist. "Jessica, I understand if you need time to process this, but please don't walk away assuming you know what I want or who I am." His touch sent warmth spiraling up her arm. "What do you want, Gabriel?" "A chance," he said simply. "Dinner next Friday. Just you and me this time." Jessica studied his face, searching for any sign of insincerity, but finding only open vulnerability beneath his confident exterior. "I'll think about it." The rest of the afternoon passed pleasantly, despite the undercurrent of tension between them. Lily was thoroughly enchanted with the yacht and with Gabriel, who patiently answered her endless questions and taught her to tie sailors' knots. By the time they returned to the dock, the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Thomas was waiting with the car to take them home. As they approached Jessica's house, Lily was fast asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the excitement of the day. "I had a wonderful time," Gabriel said softly as the car stopped in her driveway. "Despite our complicated conversation." Jessica nodded, glancing at her sleeping daughter. "She'll be talking about this for weeks." "And you?" His voice was low, intimate in the quiet car. "What will you be thinking about?" Jessica met his gaze directly. "The truth? I'll be wondering if this is real or just a billionaire's diversion." Gabriel's expression grew serious. "I've had diversions, Jessica. This isn't one of them." To prove his point, he leaned forward slowly, giving her ample time to pull away before his lips met hers in a gentle, questioning kiss. The contact was brief but electric, sending a current of awareness through Jessica's entire body. When they parted, she was breathless, caught off guard by the intensity of her response to him. "Friday," he murmured. "Say yes." Jessica looked at him, this man who had upended her carefully constructed world in the span of a week, and found herself nodding. "Yes." His smile was both triumphant and relieved. "I'll pick you up at 7. That night, after putting Lily to bed with promises that yes, they could visit Gabriel's yacht again sometime, Jessica sat alone in her living room, turning her phone over in her hands. She pulled up Amanda's contact and typed, "I think I'm in over my head." The response came quickly. "Details. Now." Jessica smiled, then began recounting the day's events, including Gabriel's confession about knowing who she was before they met. Amanda's reply was characteristically blunt. "So what? The man noticed you from across a room and wanted to meet you. Then he liked you enough to be honest about it. Sounds like the opposite of a problem to me." Put that way, it did seem less concerning. Perhaps she was overthinking things, looking for reasons to retreat to the safety of her predictable life. The following Friday, Jessica left Lily with her mother, promising to reveal all details about her dinner with the billionaire afterward. She chose a simple black dress that she hadn't worn since before Lily was born, surprised to find it still fit perfectly. Gabriel arrived exactly on time, looking devastating in a tailored suit without a tie. His appreciative gaze as she opened the door made her feel beautiful in a way she hadn't experienced in years. "You look stunning," he said, presenting her with a single red rose. Dinner was at a small, exclusive restaurant with only 8 tables, each secluded from the others. Over exquisite food and wine, Jessica found herself sharing stories she hadn't told anyone, about her childhood dreams, her parents' divorce, her fears about raising Lily alone. Gabriel listened with genuine interest, offering his own revelations in return: the pressure of building an empire, the loneliness of success, his estrangement from his only brother. "I've built something significant," he admitted, "but at the end of the day there's no one to share it with, no one who sees me as just Gabriel, not Gabriel Reed of Reed Enterprises." "Is that what you want?" Jessica asked. "Someone who doesn't care about your success?" "I want someone who would still be there if it all disappeared tomorrow," he replied, his blue eyes intent on hers. The evening passed in a blur of deep conversation and growing connection. When Gabriel finally drove her home, insisting on taking the wheel himself rather than calling Thomas, Jessica felt as though she'd known him for years rather than days. At her doorstep, under the soft glow of the porch light, Gabriel took both her hands in his. "I'm leaving for Tokyo on Sunday. Business negotiations that can't be postponed. I'll be gone for 2 weeks." Jessica's heart sank slightly. "I understand. You have responsibilities." "What I have," he corrected, "is a private jet that can return me to you every weekend if you'll let me see you again when I get back." The intensity of his gaze made her breath catch. "That's a lot of jet fuel to spend on a school teacher." Gabriel laughed softly. "I'd cross oceans for another night like this." His expression grew serious. "Jessica, I know this is fast and I know our lives are different, but I haven't felt this way in maybe ever." He leaned down, capturing her lips in a kiss that was deeper, more certain than their first. Jessica responded without hesitation, her arms winding around his neck as she pressed closer to him. When they finally parted, they were both breathing heavily. 2 weeks, she murmured against his lips. "I'll call every day," he promised. "And when I return, I want you and Lily to come to my house for dinner. Meet the rest of my world." Jessica nodded, unable to deny the connection growing between them, despite all the reasons it shouldn't work. "We'll be waiting." True to his word, Gabriel called daily from Tokyo, arranging the time difference around Jessica's schedule. He sent small gifts for both her and Lily: Japanese candy, a beautiful silk scarf, an authentic marine biology book that had Lily squealing with delight. When he returned, tanned and tired but smiling at the sight of Jessica and Lily waiting at the airport, Jessica knew with sudden clarity that this was no passing fancy for either of them. Their worlds might have been different, but they had carved out a space between them where those differences didn't matter. Gabriel's home was unsurprisingly magnificent, a modern mansion overlooking the ocean. But what touched Jessica most was the room he had prepared for Lily, complete with marine-themed decorations and a small aquarium. "You didn't have to do this," she said, as they stood watching Lily examine her new fish with scientific precision. "I wanted to," Gabriel replied simply. "I want her to feel welcome here. Both of you." 6 months later, on a clear autumn day, Gabriel took Jessica back to the Grand Meridian Hotel where they'd first met. They walked into the same ballroom, now empty except for a table set for 2 exactly where table 19 had been. "What is this?" Jessica asked, laughing as he pulled out her chair. "I thought we should properly revisit the place where everything changed," Gabriel replied, sitting across from her. Dinner was served by the same waiter who had attended to Gabriel at the wedding. As they finished dessert, Gabriel reached across the table for her hand. "Jessica Barnes, you've completely transformed my life. You and Lily have filled an emptiness I didn't even realize was there until I met you." Jessica felt tears prick at her eyes. "You've changed our lives too. I never expected to find someone who would accept both of us so completely." Gabriel's thumb traced patterns on her palm. "I have something to ask you." He reached into his pocket and produced a small velvet box. Jessica's heart skipped as he opened it, revealing a stunning diamond ring. "I know it's only been 6 months," he said, his confident demeanor replaced by an endearing nervousness. "But when you know, you know. And I know that I want to spend my life with you and Lily." He moved from his chair to one knee beside her. "Jessica Barnes, will you marry me?" Jessica looked at the man before her, the billionaire who had sat at table 19 and changed the trajectory of her life with a simple, "Pretend you're with me," and saw only Gabriel, the man who loved her daughter as his own, and who had proven day after day that their different backgrounds meant nothing compared to what they had built together. "Yes," she whispered, tears flowing freely now. "Yes, Gabriel." As he slipped the ring onto her finger and pulled her into his arms, Jessica thought about the long journey from that first wedding to this moment. From sitting alone at table 19 to finding a love she never expected. Sometimes, she realized, the most beautiful stories begin in the most unlikely places,